Yo, what up? What up? What up? Okay, we're live. I want to make sure everything's set up. This is my first stream, solo stream in the same spot. I usually do the stuff with my lovely wife Sheba, but we established in the How Billy Sees It live stream here. So this is it. What up? Today's Monday, the 23rd of May, and I'm feeling good. And I felt really motivated. I said I want to get on today, so I'm on, and I'm gonna try some stuff. We're gonna talk. We're gonna see what happens. I'm trying to be pretty free flowing about this, but I do have some things I want to talk about. But other than that, I'm just gonna let it develop, yo. See what happens. What up? Thanks for being here. Let me put some things in place real quick. Okay. All right. So I'm back here. Okay. Yeah, so this is the live stream. What I want to talk about today was a couple of things, but really I want to kind of piggyback off the last video I did, the last solo video I did, which was about love. So if you haven't seen that, There's no spoilers. You can go check that out. But I'll do a quick very quick synopsis. That video is about 40 minutes. I try to break down what I think love is and how it manifests and what it looks like and what a tangible definition of love looks like and is. So pretty much I think love, just as a quick kind of breakdown on what that is, just because that will lead to where I'm going to today. Love is a few things, but it starts with understanding that everything is one, right? So, and that's everything. That's all the stuff that we're thinking about, but lots of stuff that we're not thinking about. It's all one, So it starts with understanding that time is only now. There's only one present moment. Everything else is illusory. Everything is either a fabrication of some sort, something that we've experienced and remember, or it's something in the future, but it's not the present. And the present is a constantly moving kind of goalpost that we are always existing in. And if you're listening to this right now, you are in this present right now, right? So love is coming to that. And then love is recognizing that everything else is also one. And so that means that you and I are also one. People are all one. I've tried to make the case that we're all connected. I can say that we're connected on a number of different ways in our different societies, but even down to our language and our norms, our cultures, we're all one. And as individuals, each of us are very different, but we all have a million similarities and things that are common that make us one, that we all sort of classify as humans. So oneness is a real thing, and it's what it is, but we have these ways of separating ourselves, And so that's kind of what I want to talk about in this one. We have these ways of separating ourselves. Did I address oneness fully there? Oneness is synonymous also with love. Because if you identify and recognize that things are what they are now and that we are connected, then you accept what things are. And if you're dealing with someone, you demonstrate love by accepting who they are, and accepting the fact that you're both human, and so you operate with an understanding that you and your condition is the same as theirs, and so you seek to move with that understanding. And so the things that you care about, you understand that they have their own cares and concerns, and they have their unique experiences, and you want to delve into that and understand that and appreciate that and operate with that understanding so that you can show love. So that video, I think I get into it further, but I don't want to get too deep into this. I don't want to lose too much time talking about oneness, because I want to talk about separation, which is the opposite of oneness, And what's crazy is when I talk about it, like when I say it's the opposite of oneness, it's not just the opposite of oneness. The opposite of love seems as though I'm talking about something bad. And sometimes it can be that, often is that. But when I get there, hopefully if I do this right, we'll see. It's bigger than bad. Bad is a subjective observation. Bad puts us back into a person experiencing something, but separation is way more complex than that. All right, let me get into it. Let me get into that. Let me see actually if I might need some help with a little bit of drawing, so it might be better to come in here 1 second, get a little creative with this, and I'll switch this into this guy, and I'm gonna open up this 2D animation joint here. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna do a very simple kind of thing, just for visuals, man, because visuals help me. I don't know if they help you. Maybe they do. All right. Classic, we got a circle, and the circle represents a whole. This is a whole thing, okay? And kind of the issue with the oneness is sometimes if it's not, and this is why it took 40 minutes in the other video, because if it's not explained, it's confusing. You're like, what do you mean? It's very counterintuitive. It feels very intuitive and obvious that you are a separate being and I'm a separate being and that we exist separately. You certainly care about things that are different from the things that I care about, and you have different perspectives and needs, and depending on your biology and your psychology and your chemistry and all kinds of other ways of looking at us and who we are, you know. But, you know, one of the most interesting things I think is that, you know, we call ourselves humans, we call ourselves a species, yo, but we're something that we don't fully understand, yo. There isn't a proper discourse and language to understand it. We're an interesting, intricate, deeply insane, you know, biomechanical existence. And then we have consciousness on top of that, you know, that allows us to perceive, you know. And so these are some strange concepts, particularly if they aren't really fleshed out. But again, please check that love video. I want to talk a bit about separation. So one of the first things I want to say is that separation seems to be necessary, yo. Oh snap, we got Bex, we got Sheba, what up, y'all? Separation seems to be necessary. It's like, you know, when you look at, if we're all one, if we were literally all one, if we were truly one big gelatinous being, sort of attached is Siamese twin the right word? Is there a better conjoined twin? Then, you know, there's some deep limitations with that. There's some interesting things that, you know, we wouldn't have the beauty and the variety and the you know what I'm saying, the beauty of the mix of the differentiation that has to occur in order for us to appreciate the fullness of this experience. So even as we're one, like I said, you know, we're one in a very obvious way. You know, we all operate on this planet, and just as your liver operates alongside the lungs and alongside the other systems in your body, they operate together, and each of them does their job. But when you pull out, when you have the capacity to pull out, you look at yourself and you say, I am one. You don't, you know, and you only really appreciate what's going on inside once you delve deeper and you go in and you start to give things names and you label things and you separate things. But it's all one. It's all part of your corporeal being. And you can appreciate that, but maybe your heart doesn't. Your heart is busy at work doing its thing, you know? So you have to pull out. So right now, when you look at this picture, this circle, you're seeing we've pulled out. And this is the whole thing, you know? What a crazy concept. So that's the inside part with the lungs and the liver and all that. But even on this planet, when you think about it, we know that the borders that we've erected, we've done that. The borders aren't real. There's no major difference between us and a resident in Canada, you know, or a resident in Mexico, or someone who lives in Ghana. We're all the same. We have the same condition. So these are all contrived separations that have been created over the course of this incredible history that we have, you know. A lot of it are ugly history. The United States is further cut down. So even as we're all Americans, but then you separate further into states, and we separate further into cities, and we have our little neighborhoods and communities. And then each of us separates further into families. You know? How else do we separate? We separate, these are separations that we make without really much even thinking about it. And so that's key to remember, because let me just draw a line through this real quick. Boom. All right. So it seems that in order to perceive, you have to separate. In order to perceive and understand, you have to separate. The fullness, this whole is too complex, right? In order to understand the United States, sometimes it's easier to break it down state by state and talk about what's going on in Florida versus what's going on in New York versus what's going on in Texas and in Detroit. It's very different, and it's helpful to break that down, to separate. So separation has this value, you know what I'm saying? It could potentially have value in terms of understanding, and that's precisely why we do it, in order to perceive better with greater clarity. We separate, but the truth is, it's all one. You know, it goes back to that. It's all one. The water, the droplets of water in the Atlantic Ocean are no different than the droplets of water in the Pacific Ocean, but we give them different words in order to understand. Okay, so that's separation. I want to talk further about the ways separation works out. I think it's weird how when I look at sort of the characteristics of like capitalism, it seems that separation finds a way to extract value. Value happens from separation. So let me take this line off real quick. This one group here, it is one, but but like, okay, I played football in college, yo, and I loved it. It was great time. But when you look at it for real, you realize that these are just students who live in different, but we're all like, we put on a different jersey, we put on different helmets, and we play a game together, and we separate. We come up with rules, and sometimes it's a violent game. Football could be a violent game, but what's cool is when you notice it's a game, then you can come back to one. After every game, you are sort of tasked with meeting at the 50-yard line and shaking hands and realizing that it was just a game. And so again, that's another example of a separation that is, it's contrived in the same way race, religion, gender, and nationality are contrived. But it's one that we've built in the sense that this is just a game. We've built it in, and we give it a time allotment, and we have rules, and you can do stuff, whatever, but afterwards, you know, we laugh it off and it's all good. And that is an interesting truth, and I think it's an interesting model for sort of thinking about what's going on here. Like, this is all a game that we're all in together, and our contrived separations need to be looked at, you know, for what they are. When I think about like businesses, I had a small business. I still do BB Digital. I do animations, and I've worked with different businesses who need commercials and things like this. All kinds of businesses, small ones and large ones, and you know, they create SKUs. They create different products to attract different markets and different people based on a particular brand, their little company or big company, their little industry, and they create these SKUs, which is, this is SKUU. This is important in order to achieve the goals. There's, you know, there's profit and benefit in yet another contrived separation there. I think about NFTs. I'm working on a couple of NFT projects. NFTs is a big thing for a minute. It seems to be dying down right now. The entire kind of crypto scene is having a hiccup. Maybe it's a hiccup. Maybe it's something bigger than a hiccup. But you know what NFTs are at the end of the day? NFTs, and I have them. So like, NFTs are a contrived separation. You take a picture. People sometimes get confused because there's all these pictures, and you're like, wait, what? Why is someone paying all this money for this really ugly picture of a cartoon monkey or something? NFTs, what they've done is they've taken a technology, a Web3 technology, and they say, here's a picture. Let me see if I can just do this. Let me draw this like a little bit. Let me use this while I got it. Why is this not picking up? Okay, great. So, what am I gonna draw here? You got a picture, okay? It's an ape, okay? This picture is not worth anything. This picture is a picture, and it's just a bunch of pixels. And particularly if it's a picture, unlike an artist, let's say, who drew something or painted something or sculpted something in a tangible world, the NFT space is digital. And so what's the challenge with that if you're an artist? If you're an artist, whether it's music or some other kind of art form, you realize how quickly things can be duplicated and spread out. And so when something is duplicated, when something is easily available to everyone, the capitalist system, it loses its value. It loses its value. It's, everyone has this thing. So how can you charge blah, 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 you know? What the NFT thing is, it's all about this concept on Web3, where instead of allowing, so like I've seen even like memes of this, there's a picture of that girl who's like, there's a fire behind her. What's the name of that meme, baby? You know what's my?
Disaster Girl.
Disaster Girl. Disaster Girl sold on, I think, OpenSea or one of the markets for an insane amount of money. And you go, what? I can right click on something on Google right now and get that picture. What they did was they created essentially a database, a server that is a public log where everyone can come and look. And they said this particular set of pictures. So while the picture exists everywhere else, whoever's the creator, ostensibly, ideally, the creator can upload that image to one particular spot on the internet, one particular place, and it will have its own number. It will have a very unique location, and they will say this picture, but they privilege this picture and say this is the original picture. This is separate from all those other copies. So you can right click and download all those other copies. Yeah. Get that off Facebook, get that off Google, but this joint right here, this joint is the picture. And it's just that's all it is. And it's a subtle mental flip, a subtle rearranging of the way of thinking about that picture, which if you agree, all of a sudden it has value. And so people have been spending and dropping big coin over this value because it is supposedly separate. It is its own separate thing. And really the value came from the flipping, right? So the person buys this and says, okay, I'm the owner of the original Disaster Girl, and they buy it for $500, and they buy it not because they love the art or that because they think that it has any sort of significance in a major way, but that they have the expectation that someone else who also believes in this system, who believes in the separation, who believes in the narrative about the separation, that they will buy it for $700. And then that person buys it because they believe that the next person will buy it for $4,000. And these are actually chump change numbers because the actual numbers are in the hundreds of thousands and I think even the millions. But I guess I just want to point out there that this picture, this NFT, the entire concept of an NFT is an interesting opportunity because it shows just how pivotal separation is to the entire thing, just as a conceptual separation. You have this value that comes out of nowhere simply by conceiving of it as separate and different. Do you see? So that's what friggin' NFTs are, more or less. And there's some complexity that goes into it, and Web3 has all these other capabilities, but primarily what it does is it allows you to say that this right here is the genuine thing and separate, okay? So that's what separation does. And so I guess I just want to point out, see how that there's some of that is not inherently bad. Some of that is what it is. It's kind of how things work. Once you believe in the separation, so football, again, my stepdad was a huge Eagles fan. And if and when the Eagles did poorly, Sundays he was in a different mood. You know what I'm saying? He cared very much about the Eagles. And I started to care very much about the Jets. And I still do. I love the Jets. But it's a football team, in this big corporate thing. I have made it so that I care about the Jets over here. I care about the Jets. Can't spell. But I hate the Patriots, And I get to create excitement. I get to have passion. I get to experience differently than a lot of people. I know some people, who fucking don't care about football too much. They go to a game to enjoy the experience with friends, but, so it's just another example of how, a separation kind of allows us to experience. It's part of the experiential thing of this consciousness. So I hope that point is clear. But it's way deeper than that. It's way deeper than that. It's deeper than just separating for money and for pleasure. We separate because we have to in order to understand the complexity of this experience. So my theory is that we exist in something that is infinite, and infinite is something that is really hard to conceive, you know? And I'm going to come back to that, but we exist in something that's infinite, and in order to understand, in order to experience ourselves and the world, our mind is incredibly more powerful than we understand, and our mind is creating its notion of us inside, our inside selves and our external selves. And it does that in order to survive, in order to understand, in order to, the things that drive us, in order to find love, in order to have experience. We create these separations so that we can understand who we are better. Our mind is deeply, heavily, at every moment, creating the world that we experience. And that's a crazy, powerful thing. So what does that mean? You know, what's crazy is, you know, obviously our world suffers so much from so many, you know, degradations and ways of not seeing each other, and sort of harmful separation. So I want to get into that. You see it all the time when babies don't, a white and a black baby will be near each other, either babies or even, you know, older children, have no issues. They're not attached to anything but the experience with another human being, you know? And they may have lots of differences. You know, one of them likes grapes, the other one likes, you know, melons. The other, you know, one of them wants to play with the truck, the other one wants to play with the other toy. You know, maybe they want to play with the same toy. They go through it. But this concept of the skin color difference, while it's real, you and I as adults, we, in some ways, we're burdened with a story that sits on top of the experience. We have this infinite experience of another person of a different racial, ethnic background, and we can't help but to perceive along with all the stuff that we know. So we're separating based on stories. And I want to say, like, children will separate in different ways, you know? They are testing things out all the time. They're separating, they're trying to understand themselves. They start to, my nieces are great examples for me. They help me. I watch them and I kind of marvel at the way they operate. But they, you know, they're separating, they're testing out the noises they can make. They're trying to grab things, all this stuff. But they don't suffer from the stories that we do that are part of how we separate, you know? Here's another great one. Separation. You know, remember when Donald Trump was president? Ugh, sorry to bring you back to that, but there was a whole thing about him and all his businesses, and how's he going to be president and also have all these businesses? And then the media goes, oh yeah, well, he's going to separate his bank account, and that business is going to be over there, and that's going to be run by someone else, and that's all nonsense. That's all contrived. It's all under the Trump organization. He's going to call somebody, he's going to figure, it's all. But it's kind of a thing we do in order to get through with the complexity. It's so complex, the financial situations that are involved with a multi-billionaire international celebrity person who then becomes president. How do you deal with all that? You kind of go, oh, okay, well, we'll separate this and that. It's not true. I speak further with CNN. You know, we have people, I think most of you know I left CNN. But Fox News will complain about the media. They will complain about the media. They will complain about CNN and MSNBC and the mainstream media is what they say. There's a separation that they create to talk about themselves differently, to see themselves differently. And CNN does it reverse. CNN complains about Fox News and the media. This is all... It's all made up. They're both part of the thing. If there's a problem in the mainstream media, it's the whole thing. And they all try to contrive ways of not speaking about their contribution. You see what I'm saying? It's how that works. And I'll speak even inside the organization at CNN. There are people who will, with all of my complaints and all of my critique, that I've tried to be clear and honest and consistent. I've tried to be specific in some ways, but also, like I said, this stuff is all connected. They'll say, okay, like for instance, I have an issue with Brian Stelter. I'll speak with people who will agree with me. Yeah, Brian Stelter, it's a whole thing. Well, and they'll contrive a difference. They'll say, well, he's got his own show, comes on the weekends and his own thing. But over here, I do my thing. We do journalism. We do a different thing. That's a contrived separation. That's another one of those separations that's made up. The reason it's made up is in order to preserve a sense of self, right? A sense of self, an ego, a sense of self, whether it's an organizational ego or an individual ego, whatever the community group is. We always do this thing. We always place the burdens and the harms elsewhere. The concept of the devil, the concept of evil is a cup. It's a bucket that's sitting there waiting for someone to fill it, and we fill it with all of our stuff. I think I was looking at the derivation of the word scapegoat. A scapegoat was at some point a literal goat that a community or a village group of people could put all their harms and their sins and all the bad things that they did in the year or in the past, whatever period, and they would kind of do a ritual, a ceremony, and put all those things on the goat and then put it out to pasture. Okay, that's gone. That's not us anymore. It's a restart. It's a way to exculpate oneself from the fullness of who you are and what you do. In some ways you might laugh at that, but in some ways that's healthier. There's at least an acknowledgement for a second, like, okay, everyone has to come to the goat with its truth, and then you can get rid of it, rather than kind of what we do now. We just completely block it out. And I say we in an interesting collective way, but I do it too. I can't help but to do it. It's helpful just to know, though. You gotta know. All right. Yeah, man, the self and the other, yo. So a lot of times I see like shadow work is coming out more. Shadow work is something that I think people it's like going to be a growing consciousness around what that means. It means this. It means reconnecting with the harmful, or even the things that you don't want to acknowledge about self. It is to take it in and to examine it, and to be in a similar way. Once you take it in, you can instead of putting the goat out to pasture, you can incorporate it. You can accept yourself as a full human. I think what's tough is it harms love, right? If you build a society where you expect people to be perfect, whatever perfect means. The first thing is to acknowledge that there is no perfect. Whatever conception of perfect that you have is your conception. It is not real. It is just as contrived as anything else. Anything else I've said so far about the football teams or the nation states and the religions and these separations related on race. You have a set of you separated the world into good and bad. Let me come back to this while I got this up. You separated the world into good and bad, and so there is no perfect. Perfect is kind of like the yin and the yang, man. You can see this right here. Perfect is it's not real, and whatever it is that you have is completely yours, right? So the shadow work says we're gonna take this off. We're gonna remove the separation, and we're gonna deal with ourselves as full people, and it's very important to do this, I think. And I think that's one of the key characteristics of love. To go back to that, one of the key characteristics of love is this capacity to accept what is, to accept what is. And so when I talk about Brian Stelter, his failure to I keep picking on Brian Stelter. I'm picking on him, but I've explained why I have. But I recognize that it's way bigger than him. He's just one person. He's a very powerful person in a very particular position who is saying a set of things that I think he doesn't really embody. But the truth is, love. If you love, let's say, the organization, the news organization, you help them understand. You don't carve this out and say, oh, this is Fox News and this is CNN. This is the good stuff. Because it's just not true. You gotta come at it for real. Say, oh man, so yeah, some of this stuff sucks. All right, and that's how you get to deal with it. So that is that's what that is. Let me get one more quick thing about separation real quick. Is before working at CNN, I worked on Capitol Hill for a couple of years when I first got out of school, and we carved out different things for different people. Again, because reality is complex. The fullness of any situation, it's hard. So how do members of Congress deal with a complex citizenry, voting population that has hundreds of different needs, Well, you have to break it up. So I handled different things for the congressman. And one of the things I handled was women's issues. They had housing, there was education, there was immigration, there was healthcare. And then there was another category called women's issues. And I want to, years later now, I want to take issue with that. I want to talk about, you have to just be, what happens is you got to recognize that it's helpful for you. The separation can be a tool, but just like the football game, you have to meet at the end and shake hands and realize that was just a game. That was a contrivance. That was a tool. That was a symbol. The word women's issues doesn't mean anything. Every issue that affects women affects me, And so some of the and men at large generally, because we're all the same. So some of the recently the Supreme Court stuff over Roe v. Wade, the relative silence by a lot of men is a failure to recognize that this affects you too. Certainly it affects the women in your lives, the mothers and the sisters and the people you're dating. You know what I'm saying? That's all connected. We're all the same. The idea of women's issues is a contrivance, a useful contrivance in a particular situation. Other than that, it becomes a confusion. I see the same thing with on CNN too. As a black man, whenever they have something going on with police or something going on with police or black people in jail or some sort of a race crime, they pull in the expert black guy comes in now, or the black woman comes in and speaks on this issue because they feel they need to do that. And on some level they do need to do that, but also that's a contrivance. This person should be capable of talking about more things. There are black people who are capable of talking about the economy and about politics and about philosophy and any subject on the map. And an effort to pull in the black guy for the black guy thing is a contrivance. And I think what happens too is I think on the viewer end, this is just a theory, on the viewer end, I think people internalize a sense of this. There are black issues. I see people talk about this. I see some black people don't take on certain issues because it feels as though this kind of out of our hands. This is a United States, white America kind of thing. Or that, I think it teaches us, it reinforces a sense that we should only be concerned with things that matter to us. And again, us, you have perceived yourself in a certain way, I want to take a break in a second, but before I take a break, I would just want to get into just how complex and interesting this is, right? So before I did a straight line, but I want to say it's weirder than this. It's way weirder than this because this is infinity, okay? So infinity. All right, you got to understand that infinity is crazy. Infinity is everything. Infinity is not just 1 through 1,000 all the way to infinity. It's all of those individually. It's not just the number infinity. It's 1, it's 2, it's all of them. It's everything. It's the water, it's the ideas, it's the concepts, it's this pen, it's everything, you know? And so when we believe that something is our issue, an issue for us, we have to realize that we are creating this line. And before it was a straight line, but I want to illustrate just how jagged and not straight it is. And so when I realize that I'm talking about an issue going on in the Caribbean, or an issue going on in Ghana, or an issue going on in Europe, or an issue going on in Atlanta, or an issue going on with women, we are like, I develop a sense of what is me and what is the rest of the world, you know? That's the other contrived separation. Me and the rest of the world. Okay? And so we look at the issue and we go, this is depends on the story that we've been told. We say, oh, that's happening in Palestine. That's happening in Ukraine. Yikes, hold on, let me stop that. Here we go. So we do this contrivance thing where we go, okay, that's happening in a different part of the world. That's happening over here. This is not me. But it is you. and because we're all the same. But we do this. We do this thing and we separate. And I just want to point out how valuable it is to acknowledge that, because every bit of anxiety we have that makes us think that something is about us or it's not about us, either way, it has to do with us. It's how we've been taught to think about ourselves. And so I've been taught to think of myself as a young man in Brooklyn who grew up with a father who was an active member of the Nation of Islam. With my understanding of the world, I thought of myself as a poor black kid. And there's a whole bunch of stories connected to that. And if I wanted to, I can contrive a way of thinking of myself that will separate white people, that will separate women, poor black boy, that will separate women, separate people in other parts of the world, separate, I was an athlete. I could separate disabled people from me, put that all in here. And, women, gay people, put that in here. I could just keep going, But I want to point out just how complex infinity is. We contrive this separation based on the narrow inflection points of difference that we have been taught to pay attention to, And once you have a deeper sense of what's going on and you pull out, you realize that this line is all made up. And so the fact that my skin is darker than some other people's has no meaningful bearing on whether or not I should care about their well-being, their safety, things like this. So that's true for skin color. Again, it's true for gender. A lot of the times, as a man, we can't fully understand what it means to take on the burden of childbirth, the beauty and burden of childbirth. I don't have that capability in me. You know what I'm saying? But so love is recognizing when I talk to a woman and she tells me, yo, and she tells me the stats on how, on child mortality rates and mortality rates for mothers in childbirth, and that I can take that on and I can assume it. And I can say, oh, I don't need this contrived line that separated me and this woman. When I look at someone like, again, Alok Vimenon is someone I follow on Instagram and on YouTube. He's kind of growing in notoriety and popularity, and I'm glad for it, man. He's a really articulate, brilliant, and kind of a beautiful poet in ways. He has a way with words. Sorry, I'm misgendering him again. He's a non-binary person, and his pronouns and their pronouns are they, them. But so Alok at first might land in here in the rest of the world category, but once I communicate with them and I realize that they are having a human experience and they are trying to express, what was once this other thing that didn't make sense to me so far into my experience as a black boy, straight boy from Brooklyn, now becomes very accessible, and I can pull out, and I realize that, the separation was a contrivance. Again, this line need not be here, they're all me, Alok, who is this line, let's say, Alok is this line. Alok gets up in the morning and wants to express, he wants to be, they want to be, they are hairy, they are colorful, they are, poetic, and I totally get it. I know what it's like to, from my perspective, from my vantage point, to be something internally and then have people kind of scoff at it and say something's wrong with that. I know what that feels like. I think all of us do on some level, For me, it has nothing to do with my gender and my clothing and my style, my appearance. It has a lot to do, for me, I fit neatly into that as a cisgender dude. All the things I was taught about how to dress and pants and hoodies and sort of masculinity is very comfortable for me. But I can understand, I can see what it feels like, I get it, to be human. That is to say, to be a person who is experiencing and trying to express and dealing with a broader structure of judgment and social norms and expectations that were in many ways burdensome to me. So I can accept that, especially when I know that reality is infinity. The only reason I had any issue, if I ever had an issue with a man wearing a dress, if I ever had that issue, the only reason I did was because a story told me that infinity isn't real, told me that this isn't, told me to perceive that with judgment. It told me to perceive it with a sense of shame for that person, and that person would be relegated to some negative place, right? But that doesn't make any sense. When you look at it, that doesn't make any sense. And so it goes back to love again, because once I get rid of my line is a story. I incorporate all this stuff and the messy other people who do all kinds of things that I don't fully understand. I understand that all these lenses are lenses, and I'm constantly working at that. And that's what love is, if you ask me. And it's just an interesting challenge, and I need to take this break real quick, but it's just an interesting challenge because there is the undeniable truth about oneness. And then there is the undeniable truth about our limits of our perception and our need for separation for all the different reasons that I said earlier. Like, separation seems to be unavoidable. It's unavoidable in terms of our perceptions, and it certainly can be, it can have value there. It can be a tool if we separate. Sheba has different strengths than I do. I have different strengths than she does, and so we might choose to separate in order to better attack a problem. But in truth, we are one. And that is what it fucking is. That's just what it is, you know? And that's what I got. So, yo, I'm going to take a break. And see you soon. Woo.
And if you ain't got no cup, don't touch that bottle. She knowing that she fly too. And I can't say bye to them thighs, no matter how fucking hard I try to. She got a new boyfriend, but we still sexy. She don't call me as much, but we still texting. My shorty with the bubble butt. Butterflies bubble up in your gut. Fuck the rules, let's make some moves. It's true I could try something new, but I'm sliding with my ex-lady. Let's jet, baby. I see you just can't quit. See you just can't quit. I see you got a new nigga. See you got a new, but he just don't fit. But he just so. So I said, hey baby, I see you just can't quit. See you just can't quit. I see you got a new nigga. See you got a new, but he just don't fit. But he just don't fit. Now you lying to your friends and pretending we don't speak. Promised you, man, we was done, we was over. You run to come over to the crib when you leave the club. You still got that wristband on your left hand. Right wrist bracelet, yes ma'am, let's jam like the printer when you overloaded. And don't I go to work on that ass like I'm trying to get promoted. Riding in the Lotus. Friday, I know to shoot it coldest. A Coca-Cola ain't popping quite like you are. Light brights in the brake lights. New car, I'ma watch it like Zeitgeist. I should've been cut you off, but I keep slipping. My homie had the same story, but it seemed different. It's supposed to be me or you this time to slip. Shit, maybe not this round. I learned my lesson, baby, next time around. Hey, baby, I see you just can't quit. See you just can't quit. I see you got a new nigga. See you got a new, but he just don't fit. But he just so. So I said, hey baby, I see you just can't quit. See you just can't quit. I see you got a new nigga. See you got a new, but he just don't fit. But he just don't fit. I'm looking at my watch right now. It's about that time. All the fine ladies, I need y'all to grab them bags and break down that pine. Show me that you mine. Whether you sipping on that brown or you sipping on that wine, please recline. I feel inclined to let you know that your mind is mine. But he just don't fit.
All right, we back. What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? Okay. Um, thanks for still being with me here. Whoever's here still with me. I just wanted to take a quick break, get some water, gather my thoughts real quick. The second one, yo, I want to talk real quick. I want to do like another 20 minutes or so and talk about this new dope ass album, the Kendrick Lamar album. I'm really kind of in love with the joint right now. I don't know. There's been some good albums out, but this thing is really popping for me. I think it's a real piece of art, and I think it's a real piece of poetry. I think he's really speaking to his audience. I think he's also getting a lot of stuff out for him. I think it's probably very cathartic for him. I know this feeling as somebody, I make art, I make animations, and I write, and I try to tell stories. And there's something about this. It's connected to what we talked about a second ago. To be whole, it's helpful to be able to explore and express the fullness of you and your experience, the things that were ugly and traumatic as a child, the things that were difficult. And when I say trauma, I mean the full spectrum of it. You know what I'm saying? Like not just, PTSD for some violent crime or something that's been blocked out, but even the nicks and bruises of being told and taught how to be in the world. I want to put that into the box of trauma because it is that. And maybe we need more words, This is what I mean with you can see the values of the society as words develop. And right now, the fact that I'm lacking on words to describe the different versions of trauma and the ways that we're all, affected by the world around us and how the world around us affects us because it's all the same. The fact that there's a limited few words I have and trauma is really the one I can come up with right now is a shame. And I think we're going to be changing that. We're going to really be exploring that. And I think Kendrick was making himself whole. He was doing a cathartic. It was probably shadow work for him to write all that stuff and to narrate it over a beat the way that he did. Talk about all these things and his observations as a child. Some powerful stuff, yo. And I love it. So let me just take a quick look at, I don't want to play the song. I know I've been playing other songs, and so this video will be demonetized for that reason, or the money will, if there is any, will go to the artist, but I don't want to play the Kendrick album. But I just want to talk about some of my favorite joints, yo. I think Father Time was crazy. It was a crazy exploration into black male trauma and lack of strong paternal guidance and masculine examples, talks about, I don't have the lyrics in front of me, but the song is dope. And I think he talks about having to learn it on your own, you know what I'm saying? And that's powerful. And we don't talk about that. And we just exist. And we're expected to perform a whole, full, capable man. We're supposed to perform that for whatever our work duties are and in the home as husbands and fathers without ever really addressing the fullness of our experience, you know what I'm saying? And that's just a shame. And I know that I've been trying to explore it more with my writing, and I'm glad Kendrick got to do so. I hope everybody gets that kind of effort. I think the creative outlets give you that capacity to explore these things and to express them and to let them out. And for those people who don't think they're creative, I just want to say that you are. But that your definition of creative, you've carved out creative in such a way that you've put yourself out of that box. But everything that you do is creative. Everything that you do that you haven't been told to do is a creative endeavor. And you do it all the time. And so, we just got to be whole through creatively engaging with the truth, and that's love, and that's what this album does for me, man. It really hit home for me, yo. So that was what Father Time. The other joint that hit home for me for real was, one second, guys. I mean, a lot of these did, to be honest with you, but Savior I thought was powerful. Just a dope song too. Just sonically dope. A lot of these were. What's that other one? Oh, Mother I Sober. Man, talk about intergenerational or generational trauma. To address it that way, the way that he did. And I think it's a beautiful love song. And the way that he ends it, talking about releasing things. I mean, this is a man that's done some work. You know what I'm saying? This is a man, I don't know if obviously none of us are complete on his journey. I don't know how far along he is, but I see the growth and the progression in him, and I'm excited for it. And I'm here for it, And but again, in order to, the challenges of this life is I was made to believe that the challenges were really almost 100% rooted in finances, and everything was about money, and you gotta have money. But Kendrick is a testament to that. J. Cole is like lots of people. I'm picking some of my favorite hip hop artists, but pick your favorite artist of any stripe, musical, film. You see these people who've made it ostensibly by every measure, success and career wise, and they're still dealing and grappling with stuff because it's much more than that. It's much more than that, yo. It's about a harmonious existence between the inner personal self and the outer self, I want to say. There is just an outer experience that is forming us and shaping us just like the inside is, and that is the struggle, and that is the challenge, and that our perceptions our perception of this experience is deeply colored by prior experiences. I want to say, like, we can't even perceive the present except to perceive it on top of the prior assumptions, the prior truths that we have in our mind. You see what I'm saying? Nothing that happens today can be perceived. Again, you're experiencing infinity. I want to put that back on the table. And the mind has to separate and find, protect itself, discern good from bad, things like this. And it does so 100% on the back of the previous sets of ideas. And so if you don't have, so that's what it is. And so all these ideas though are kind of neutral, Some of the stuff is almost silly, like these commitments to certain things, like this is the right thing, when it's not. It's as if you went to France and you screamed at the top of your lungs that English is the correct language. or some dance move. You say, no, this is the right way to dance. Or you go to someplace in the Far East and they bow to you instead of shaking your hand, and you say, no, you are supposed to shake hands. That is the right thing to do. They're all sort of cultural things that were created, and they have no real, there's no hierarchy on these things. The only thing that there is the assessment, is the subjective assessment of them. So back to the album real quick. Kendrick represents to me an artist who is growing, and he's growing in a very public way, and he'll continue to grow. I hope he has many more albums in him. And the song Mother I Sober really actually made me tear up, because the idea of I gotta listen to it again, man. But he has this sort of a very sort of mellow or low volume refrain. It's almost as though he's ashamed of the things he's saying early on in the song, as he's recounting different things in his life and different memories. And then as he gets older, as he gets older, as the song progresses, it's like he realizes that much of that was out of his control. He starts to address even bigger problems, things. He starts to talk about the ugly racial history of chattel slavery and forced rape and, breeding, things like this. Horrible accounts of what went on, and he does so now with strength in his voice, full speed, angry, just an assertion of what was, and how it continues to trickle down and how it affects. No longer is he sort of quietly accounting. He knows what it is. He's grounded in himself, and he sees how fucked up it is, and he sees that it's not his fault, and there's no shame. There's no reason to be ashamed. And so he ends with releasing. I release this, and I release that, and I release these things that have been burdening me, and these things that have been filling me with shame, in an unwarranted way. And then he says to the listener, he's like, and I release everyone that's been harming you, something like that. I release all that, yo. This is transformation, yo. Powerful transformation from deep shame and fear and anger and an unknowing, an inability to understand. Sometimes the inability to understand is rooted in the lack that you didn't complete the fucking picture. That's why the picture doesn't make sense. You didn't complete it. And so he completes it. He releases his attachment, yo. Yes. Oh, Sheba. Releasing attachment to harmful stories with forgiveness. That's right, man. That's what it is. Because they're all stories. We're all one. And on the question of masculinity real quick, I just wanted to get on that because, Kendrick is I think undoubtedly a masculine man who, in this album, shows love. It's a love story for his mother, a love story for women he's dated. He tries to come to a place of like peace and honesty about different things he's done as a young man dating in this world, all the messages he's received about how he should date, about how he should approach everyone, including the opposite sex. He's a masculine man. He also had a song about his, I want to say, transgender uncle and another cousin who was gay, and that the challenges he saw there, the disconnect with different members of the church and members of the community who wouldn't see the fullness of those people. They're not just transgender. They're not just gay. They're a full person. They're deserving of love. And I think he articulates that in a beautiful way that I've never seen done or heard done by a cisgendered musical artist, a rapper. I think that's dope. I hope he ushers in a whole wave of this kind of understanding, because that's what's true. The other stuff is just a story. It's a contrived separation. It's bullshit. But just like all the other ones we've mentioned, it's the kind of bullshit, just like nation states and black people versus white people, and these things are all, just because they're contrived doesn't mean that they don't have power. Once a lot of people believe in a contrivance, it becomes powerful and it can become harmful. So, just like the football teams, man, you got to meet up after and shake it out and realize that it's all made up. What else about the album, yo? Masculinity. I don't know. What did I want to say about masculinity? I have masculinity written down here. I think that masculinity is a dope thing. I want to just address that real quick. I think masculinity doesn't have to be toxic. The term toxic masculinity is a term that speaks to a specific set of actions and behaviors. And the way I think that actions and behaviors are directly related to ideas behind the actions and behaviors. So toxic masculinity has to do with a way of thinking about oneself as a man and a way of being in the world. And that can be toxic masculinity. And the root of toxic masculinity is everything that we're talking about right now. It's about a contrived separation. The root of toxic masculinity is rooted in a set of stories that have been handed down for generations and generations. And it has to do with saying that, me as a man, I'm separate from these women, and these women have a different set of everything. They're from Venus, and they're weird, and these gay people, because as a straight man, they are something else. Masculinity doesn't have to include that. To me, I'm a masculine man. Masculinity, when a whole person, is a powerful force, yo. And I love it. And I express my masculinity every moment of the day. But I'm a full person. That means I engage in femininity as well. I'm engaging in humanity. And any failure to do that produces an imbalance. It produces, we call it toxic if you want. It produces a different property that isn't love. It follows naturally that it wouldn't be love because you started from a place in your mind of not love. And so your engagements with the world will not be that. So when I hear in Kendrick's album, I'm seeing a kind of like an assertion of a masculinity. You call things what it is. I don't know, like, I've been playing with masculinity, femininity like this. I just the way it's, I know these are stories, right? They're all stories, but I've been playing with the idea of femininity being sort of, in our mythology, femininity has to do with flexibility and malleability and freedom and the breadth of possibilities, you look at a raw piece of wood, and a feminine perception of that raw piece of wood allows for the fullness. It can be a wooden chair, it can be wooden jewelry, it can be a table, it can be a chopping block, it can be a handle for something, it can be a tree. Yes, you can figure out, yes. And the masculinity, so to me, that's the feminine. The feminine looks at something and gives it, it's a powerful expression of what could be, frequently. And the masculine offers a direction. The masculine says, table. It is to bring that broad and beautiful vision into the now, into something real and tangible, something concrete. So there's, it's interesting how there's a hardness to it, and that relates to our typical conception of masculinity. So those two things are important. You know what I'm saying? If let's say we just go with that. If you have this masculine sense about you, this to me goes to that idea of like if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If you're super masculine, and I'm saying super masculine because I want to take off the judgment of it. You're just intensely masculine, then you come at everything with just a commitment about what it is, which means you lack creativity. You lack the opportunity to see broader stuff. Now, that's not true for, I don't know that that's true for men. I'm not saying that that's true for men. I'm saying that men, particularly creative men, particularly whole, complete men, are able to do all of these things. And the same is true for women, But you see how I think both of these things need to be a part of us. Some of us lean more one way or the other. Some of us have greater capacities one way or the other. And that complement is important. That complement is the best version of us, if you ask me. Finding out what that is, I have my limitations in both senses, in terms of in terms of how I carve out things and how I see myself and how I see the world. But I'm proudly masculine and I'm proudly feminine. I'm both. I engage in the world, you know what I'm saying, without trying to absolve myself from dealing with the fullness of things, you know. And that full masculine and feminine mixture, that creation is me, and that's what it is. And when I see Kendrick, I see a dude in these songs, man. He has done clearly some work, and I think he's asking his viewers or his listeners, his fans, to join him in this understanding, you know. And that last song he talks about Mirror is called Mirror, and it's another one of my favorite joints. And I just think it's that again. He's talking about himself, and he's talking about the ways we mirror each other. I might want to do a fuller joint on this whole album another time, but that is all I think I wanted to say there. I wanted to draw Kendrick while I was talking, and I forgot to do that.
Do another one.
So I'll do
Just
it.
on him.
Yeah, I'll do another joint probably just on Kendrick. But yo, that's it, man. A minute. It's been a minute, and I think I'm gonna do these more often, yo. I'm gonna try to do these every Monday around 8. And, you know, Saturday morning cartoons, you already know it's pretty much every Saturday at 11 a.m. And I'm going to do these Monday at 8. And some of them are going to be shorter. I'm going to try to not to be too committed to either a time limit or some format. Just get on here and talk, man. Just get comfortable talking. All right? Yo, thanks a lot. And see y'all later.
Tell me how you feel. I feel like the grass is green, and everything I do is unseen. But I know that's just in my mind. I know everything is just in my mind.